Oh, folks, we are live. Yes, we have a full panel here at Gamers Health tonight. As usual, you have myself, Erik Tenkar, my better half, my lovely wife, Rach.
How you doing?
We have Don Samora of Wizard Tower Games, and below us we have Tom and Tammy Verl.
Hello.
So
Hello.
we
Hello,
are going
everybody.
to be covering some pretty heavy topics tonight. Um, so before we dive into all of that,
Maybe just sort of give an idea of what the topic is.
well, we're gonna. I will,
in
but I want to.
case
I want to get.
it's triggering.
If it's. I think it triggered somebody. Somebody already dropped out. Um, we now have a website that is, I would say, 95% operational. Should be done real quickly, but we wanted to show it off because I am proud of the work that Don Samora has done for this community, not just for us, but for everybody seeing the screen, everybody who's listening, everybody who's watching. GamersHealthOnline.com. It's going to be a place where even when we are in between shows, we can communicate, we can reach out to each other, uh, we can have resources, you can have support. It's going
People
to,
can tell their story on it.
yes.
Mhm.
So it's going to do a really great job in allowing us to, God, I hate to say this, right? They equalize the power in this. Rach and I certainly are the ones that have launched this, but it exists because of everybody on the screen, and everybody in the chat, and
Right. And
all our
so
regular viewers.
yeah, and
Yep.
and too like you know, we'll even be writing certain things about our own stories and experiences of our, you know, medical stuff, our life stuff, and you know, set the example and sort of lay out the invitation for other people to um, share how they identify with those things.
Yep.
9 out of 10 times, you will, and feel free to share. Feel free to, have that support.
Just the whole thing is to remind you that you are not alone,
Yeah.
Yep.
and many times it feels that way,
Mhm.
but you're not, and you're part of the community. And by the way, to those a-holes like, it's not a community, it's people who just like the game. Go pound sand. I'm trying to be nice.
Yep.
We're in the first 5 minutes of the recording, and I don't want YouTube to. Oh, they're going to demonetize us anyway because we talk about stuff that's legit, that's
Right,
real.
we talk about real stuff.
We talk about real stuff, so we're going to get demonetized anyway. Tim, good to see you, sir. Good to see you.
So sorry.
Yeah, ignore the fireworks going on in the background. We're having a Filipino revolution.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New
It would have
Year.
been so appropriate tomorrow night, but maybe they will do it tomorrow night again. So
Maybe it's New Year in the Philippines right now. I don't know.
Hey,
I don't know.
It could be.
I'm just saying. I'm throwing that out there. But again, I wanted to give the community the knowledge that that's the scroll on the bottom of the screen. GamersHealthOnline.com. There's an email address that goes along with it. Again, this is your community. This is your website. You let us know. Anybody you see on the screen right now is actively involved in this site. If you have concerns, if you have something like, oh, you missed something. Oh, I'd like to see. You don't have to reach out to me or Rach. Anybody see on the screen right now, whether it's the Veralt, whether it's Don, you can reach out, and if we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. Again, it's your community.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure I said that, and I want to get the one pitch out that I like to get out because it's only good until tomorrow at midnight. And it's hold on. I shouldn't have it as a ticker right now, should I? I'll just leave it there because it's not going to stay up. 10 cards -tavern.games/Blue Rooster.
Blue Rooster garlic. Love it.
Blue Rooster garlic. Oh man, the garlic
The
is awesome.
garlic is slamming, and everything in there is slamming.
Yeah.
We used the paprika on Thanksgiving for our sorry for our mac and cheese, and so it was really darn good.
I use the garlic and the onion for the Italian dressing I put together. I wing it. People have asked me for what my recipe is, and I couldn't tell you. I just grab spices and I just start dumping it into the oil and vinegar when it smells right. But I wanted to put that up there because the sale is on through the 31st at midnight. So you've got like a day plus. Throwing it out there. Glenn is good people, and his wife
Yes,
has
he is.
the best stuff out there for this stuff. So now
Jump on that.
jump on that. Now, I guess what do they say? We're gonna get to the meat and potatoes of the episode. If you're interested in hearing Rachel and I's previous week of whatever, that'll be tomorrow night. We got a bonus episode tomorrow night, New Year's Eve. Come join us. We can all talk and spiel and everything else. But tonight we actually have an important topic to cover.
Now, are we dedicating the video to the family members of?
I think you could say we
Don
are.
and Tammy?
You know, we're going to be and that means everybody on the screen is going to be talking about loss and decisions that had to be made because of events that we don't control. But you have to make decisions that nobody should ever have to make. And I mean, I witnessed those decisions getting made in the case of my son's mother, who was my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I watched her parents make that decision, and it was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And to explain that decision to someone who was 12 at the time was not an easy one. So we all have been talking about this kind of behind the scenes off and on because there's a lot that goes into making these decisions. And I'll be honest with you, I think the worst part of it is you feel like you're alone when you make it, even if you're with somebody, because you are taking on the world.
Yeah.
And I am but a mere retired law enforcement officer. I have, in some ways, been hardened against this stuff, and that veneer kind of fell to the side when I retired. Rachel's seen that.
Oh yeah.
But Rach, this is really more your ballpark, so I'm gonna hand this to you.
Okay.
So
So
she's like, "Damn you!"
so the topic is the end of life decisions, and so a topic that none of us ever, a place where none of us ever want to be. Our guests have been in that situation and had to make these decisions, and we want to extend the support and also have them be able to bring something positive to their situation. Not that it's all like lovey-dovey and, happy joy. Not at all. These are really painful decisions that people have to make. And yes, some people will say, yeah, we heard of another person in the community talking about pets and things like that. And while that is very important and very dear, it doesn't quite measure to your child, your husband, your family member. So I think that hearing about their story and the story of who their family member was and what they went through with this is very special to be able to highlight what they had to go through and where they are now. There's a lot of things that we go through in this lifetime that, you know, we don't know what to do with at the time, but we realize we were the only one that could make the right decision for that person.
Yeah.
And so we can turn it over
Yeah.
who wants to speak first?
Yes.
Well, I'd like to interject first because I don't have much to say. I have not had to make the decisions that Tammy or Dawn have had to make. But I've been thinking about this, that, you know, as a nurse's aide, I've been there when people have passed. And even though I didn't really know them well, one man passed with my hand on his chest. I was rubbing his chest and I said his name because he had taken a breath and he was holding it. And I'm waiting to confirm that he's still breathing. And he's holding it and holding it and holding it. So I went over and said his name and rubbed his chest, and he exhaled and he was gone. And, you know, that stayed with me a long time. So, you know, there are people who have not faced making the decisions that like Dawn and Tammy have made, but you've had some encounters,
Yes.
You know, with death.
Yes.
And, you know, this is not to minimize those at all. I think the fact that I was there for that man in that moment when there was no family there and it was a nursing home. And I think that was something special. And then we were both there for my father. And I have a family member who doesn't talk to me. And so I was like, well, screw them. You know, they're not going to know. And they had a connection to my father. And then I got thinking about it. I says, no, Tammy, I says, they won't answer my phone number. So why don't you call and let them know? And even with all of their screwing around, they ended up showing up 10 minutes after he died. I mean, but I was, you know, at least I made the right decision to, I tried to make the right decision. I tried to call them repeatedly in the day and, you know, get them there. You know, I was able to call my brother and say, if you got something to say now, you need to say it. Put the phone in Dad's ear. So, you know, there are decisions you make. They're not as big as what Tammy or Dawn have had to make. But I still think that, you know, there's good decisions that can be made. And so I just want to throw that out there for everybody listening. Even if you don't get faced with this decision, there's good things you can do even in this moment.
I want to touch on something that you said, Tom, and something that you said, Eric. Eric, you made a comment that working in law enforcement, you were exposed to a lot of death. You know, you alluded to that. I worked as a paramedic here in Michigan for 4 years, and we were a rural service. So when we had a PI or an auto accident, it was usually back country roads. The city I worked in, which was Albion, had heavy drug addiction, a lot of domestic. So we had a lot of, you know, and I thought I was hardened. You know, you get used to it. You know, you see it, and you know it's you have a person on the gurney, and you have to take as a paramedic. You don't look at them as you're looking at them as a human being because you're giving them care.
Right.
But you have to disassociate yourself when you have like a child. Like I had an infant that I lost because she had her mother gave her an M&M. In fact, it was the reason why I got a VMS. Her mother gave her an M&M to suck on. It was a newborn infant. And it slipped, and it was a peanut M&M. And it got locked down the child's throat. And I couldn't get that out of that baby's mouth.
Yeah.
And the baby ended up passing. And so, you know, it hits you hard like that. But, you know, but it's nothing like family.
Right.
There's like a different
nothing like family.
Yeah. It's a different type of trauma. You know, like when we do these things like social work, when you hear about, you know, things that people have, traumatic experiences that people have been through. You see the results of it. You guys too, with your careers, have been exposed to sort of that vicarious traumatization where it's like it wasn't happening to you, but in some ways, it still is outside of normal human experience to see certain things and hear certain things that we've seen and heard. And yeah, it's like zooming in even more when it's your own family.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, like, one of the things that struck me in just thinking about tonight is, like, I have a lot of, like, little quotes and things from all the things I've had to deal with. And one that struck me for tonight was, like, this one. I don't know if you can share it. So it just says, trauma permanently changes us. This is the big scary truth about trauma. There's no such thing as getting over it. The 5 stages of grief model marks universal stages in learning to accept loss, but the reality is in fact much bigger. A major life disruption leaves a new normal in its wake. There is no back to the old me. You are different now, full stop. This is not a wholly negative thing. Healing from trauma can also mean finding new strength and joy. The goal of healing is not a papering over of changes in an effort to preserve or present things as normal. It is to acknowledge and wear your new life, warts, wisdom, and all, with courage. And I would just defer to Dawn, like when you said, like, who should start, I was like, like, I have had a lot of death experiences in my life, which if you would have talked to me as a teenager, I would have never guessed. I mean, you can't predict life, of course, but I've had, this is husband number 3. I have 2 husbands who passed away, which is horrible to think of, just like I'm 55. But before that, when I was 30, my sister, who I had just met, I'll explain that real quick in a bit. But my oldest sibling, my sister, passed away, and I was 30. My father passed away, which is a little more traumatic for me, just because I had not met him until I was 17. And he was just like opened my whole world. He was amazing. But to Dawn, I would say, like, the death of your child, to me, I can't fathom that, right? Like, I haven't had that experience. I've had my sister, my dad, 2 husbands. Of course, that's horrible and tragic. I'm not trying to say it's not, because it definitely is. But I feel like the death of your child is an entirely different thing. And I don't know any words to explain that, Dawn, but just to say, like, that to me is just entirely different.
I mean, I've lost my mom. I've lost my dad. I lost my oldest brother. I've lost my, aunts. There's only me and my brother, my second oldest brother now left. And, nothing compared to my daughter. Nothing. And, because I think part of the problem when you lose a child is, my mom and dad. My dad had, Alzheimer's. My mom had long-standing kidney disease, heart disease. You knew it was coming. You in the back of your mind, you're preparing for it. Mom's 83, dad's 86. And actually, same thing with my older brother Ray. He died at 45. But he had congestive heart failure, and he was notorious for not going to his doctor's appointments, not taking his medication. And it was kind of a buildup. You just knew it was coming. But with Danielle, literally me and my wife are sitting in our living room, and it's 4:00 in the afternoon, and my brother pulls in the driveway. And I ain't seen my brother in 2 years. And my wife goes, "Your brother's here." And, I remember walking out into my driveway, and my brother, the look my brother gave me, I thought my mom died, because my mom wasn't dead yet. And he just came out and said, "Don, going to let you know, Danielle's at the hospital. They expect her to die tomorrow, by tomorrow." That's how I put it to me. And what people don't realize, and I'm going to cite an email that was sent to me a few weeks ago, where an individual was mocking me for it. And, there's one thing I think a lot of people need to understand about, and it doesn't matter if it's your daughter, doesn't matter if it's your wife. If you're the one that's settled with, like with me, it was unique because, me and my wife go up to the you want me to tell a story?
That's all.
I got no problem with it. Me and my wife immediately got in the car and we drove to the U of M, which is like 2 hours away. And I'll say it like I said in my video I posted on my other channel. The University of Michigan Medical Center is a top-notch. The care they gave me and my because my daughter Neoma was with me. I called my daughter Neoma, her sister, and I said, we got to get up there. And, we both went up there, or excuse me back up. It was me and my wife at first. We go up there. They denied me access to my daughter.
Oh.
They said, you're not allowed to see her. You can't know anything about her because my daughter had a boyfriend. And he's the one that took her there, got her the medical care. And he said that I was to have no contact. So, end of life care, you know what I mean? I'm dad, mom ain't seen her daughter in 5 years because mom is off doing her own thing. So me and my wife instituted, court proceedings. U of M helped us. We had immediately hearing. So at that time we got access to her. It took about 3 days.
Jesus.
Wow.
And the worst part about it was we had the hearing at 9:00 in the morning. And I hung up the phone, stood up from this computer, walked into my kitchen, and my phone rang. It was a U of M. And I answered it, and they said, Mr. Samora, you are the designated end-of-life decision maker. You need to come to the U of M immediately. Your daughter had a seizure last night. Her brain is pushing out the base of her skull. She's effectively brain dead. So you need to come. And so me and my daughter, Neoma, my wife stayed here because phone calls need to be made, trying to reach out to people,
Right.
trying to get a hold of people. So, me and my daughter, Neoma, went there and, let me tell you how this works in Michigan. Tammy, I don't know what your situation is with your ex-husbands. I don't know the process in the state of Maine, but in Michigan, you go in and, my daughter's got just about every type of line in her. She had total system failure. She was on dialysis, intubated, heart monitor. Lines. Just she was EEG was flatline. My daughter was effectively brain dead. So, they tell you the reality of it, and they're blunt. They got to be blunt. They cannot sugarcoat this type of stuff. They can't, tell you, they can't lie to you. And, the thing that impressed me was there was 3 physicians in the room and 2 nurses. And I never forget those 3 doctors telling me, said, we have lots of things to do in this ICU, but if we have to be in here for 3 hours with you, we will,
Yeah.
So they were dedicating as much time. So basically they asked us if we wanted to go into a private room. So me and my daughter Neoma went to a private room. We talked. And, Neoma was her sister. And, it's not something you just go, yeah, let's do it. Because you start thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about it in my other video, all your life with your kids, you're in protection mode.
Yeah.
Right.
Watch out. No, you're not. Sorry, get mad at me. You're not going out with that boy. You're not doing that. You're not doing that. But the problem is, and I think this is the problem with a lot of parents with their end of life decision with children. You have to, as a parent, go into compassion mode at that point. You have to take the protection out of it and go into compassion and go, I have a 33-year-old woman here. She's my daughter. There's children involved. You know, my decision that I'm going to make tonight, not the doctors, not my daughter's, my decision. It was my decision. I had to make the decision. And, no other, I'm not trying to turn this into a bitch session. Okay. But literally me and my daughter, no other family showed up, and, I'm sitting there and I'm just thinking, and you start thinking about the first time she called you dad, and it just, you sit there and you beat the shit out of yourself, but you make the decision, and then what's really odd about it is I don't want to say they make it easy, but the nurses tell you, take your time, you don't, there's things to consider, once they turn all the support off, is she going to continue to breathe? Will it take a day? Will it take an hour? Will it take days? They don't know, but the problem is in Michigan, it's 3 signatures, and you're standing there looking at this paper, and there's 3 places for you to sign, and once you sign, there's no stopping it. I mean, they warn you that once you sign that paperwork, even if they take it out of the room and you say never mind, they cannot legally, cease end of life care, they call it here. So, you sign, and you sit there, and it's like, as a father, you're like, you get in your head, I'm killing my kid. It's a real hard thing to understand, and it's hard to describe the you're standing there, and I'm not grinning because I think it's funny. It's a response I have. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
You're sitting there, and your daughter's her feet are your daughter's bed's 3 feet behind you, and you're at that little desk in the ICU room with your daughter, and you sign it, and they're very compassionate. They're very it's not like the movies. They just don't go in and click a few buttons. It's a process. It takes, with my daughter, it took about 15 minutes for them to unhook her and I look at it as I was lucky with my daughter, because with my daughter, it only took about 20 minutes. She didn't lay there and suffer. And, I don't know if I have it here or not. I thought I did. But before they do in Michigan, before they terminate, they ask you if, they do things. And I'll warn parents about it. It's disturbing, because like, they have to fingerprint your daughter, and it's this process they do. They fingerprint, and they take the last, her last EEG strip, and they make several copies of it. And what they do is they put it in a little bottle. They put little red hearts in the bottle for how many, I don't think I have it here, how many heartbeats she had going. Just little things they give you, and so the way I look at it is, as a parent, the most compassionate thing you can do, the most right thing you can do is, number one, don't listen to yourself. You listen to the medical staff. Ask questions. No doctor is going to suggest even removing somebody from life support if there's any chance. any. And I asked the key question with my daughter, and the key question with my daughter was, I said, I want to know, is there any chance at all that she can turn around? And they all said no. She's affected. She's dead. I mean, the only thing keeping her alive right now is that she's in medication we have her. So, I'm not saying that it made the decision easier, but it made the decision more palatable.
Yeah.
If you will,
Yeah.
So, they do what they do. And, like I said, the U of M, they were outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Because, me and my daughter stayed in there with her, and after she passed, they began to unhook her of everything. The nurses, they were, God, the nurse, I wish I remembered her name. They even did her, brush her hair, just the compassion.
Yeah.
Don, can I share her picture?
Sure.
She's beautiful.
Yep.
Mm.
You had a beautiful daughter.
Yep. That's her.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing I screwed up was I didn't grab a box of tissues before I said it. No, it's okay.
It just sucks. It sucks because like I said, it's and I'm not trying, even if someone's terminally ill, you have a chance to cope a little bit. You have the warning, you can get a buffer, but this type of stuff is just, sudden. It's like a lightning bolt right in the middle of your chest.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it. There's no power that you can do. And my daughter didn't have an autopsy because she was under medical care.
Sure.
Contrary to what Justin Lanasa, contrary to what that cocksucker said, contrary to what that gentleman has said about my daughter online using his alt accounts and his little buddies, she didn't have an autopsy, but they did thankfully take a sample of some fluid that was leaking out of her ears. And the thing that's frustrating about this was the week before my daughter collapsed, she went to Florida. And she swam in a freshwater lake or something. Mm-hmm. And what killed her was there was a brain-eating amoeba that got in, they believe, through, could have been nose, mouth, ear, and that's what got her.
Oh my God.
Yep. Not a stroke. You think 33-year-old woman, what could be stroke, out in the yard, something like that. There was no drug issues, there's no alcohol issues. There was nothing like that. It was literally goes on vacation, has a great time, comes home, starts not feeling well. 3 days later is found collapsed by her children.
Wow.
Just from enjoying living her best life, and then bam.
Yep.
It reminds me of my sister, who I was not even 32 yet, and my sister had her first baby, our first baby in our family, and she was born in July, and the second grandchild in our family was born, which my son Zachary was born in October. So my sister and I shared this like neat thing, and we had just met. I know that sounds odd, but I didn't know my siblings growing up. I grew up as an only child. I didn't meet my dad till I was 17, so I didn't meet my siblings until later. My oldest sister was estranged from my dad, and then got back with him, and so we had just, in the past 5 years or so, had reunited with her, which was great. And she lived here in Maine, and she worked for the state of Maine, and she tested She was a scientist, and she tested things for E. coli.
Oh, okay.
And my dad lived in Hawaii, and he would come up every summer for, a month or so and do all his, rounds in Maine and see everybody. And we would always have some sort of gathering at July 4th and that sort of thing. And her daughter had her 4th birthday party, and we went to it. And I remember my sister coughing, like she was doing the typical mom thing, running around at her daughter's birthday party. And she was coughing and looked, just exhausted. And fast forward a week later, I am with my first husband, and we went to this local, I don't know, summer amusement park type thing for the day with our son, Zach, who was 4. And my sister had been sick and had to go to the hospital, and they transported her from her little town to Maine Medical Center, which is the bigger hospital here in Maine. It's in Portland, Maine. And so we were passing through Portland, and I said, oh, well, I'll stop and see my sister. And I remember going into the hospital, being very unfamiliar with the hospital, figuring out where she was, got to her, and she was in a coma.
Oh,
and I remember going, what? Because we didn't know that she was that sick. And I remember going back out to the car and saying to my husband, you probably should just take Zach home, because I'm not leaving now. There was no one with her. Her husband and was just not able to handle the knowledge that his wife was really seriously ill. So he stayed at home with his daughter. He just didn't make that hour trip down there. And I never left. I was there a week.
You're being generous.
Well,
not backing the bus up over him.
I'm not going to back the bus up.
Well, I'm just saying, you're being generous.
Well, you're talking, I'm like 31. I don't know anything. So if any young person is watching this, like, I knew nothing about anything that had to do with, like, I might have had a grandmother that died by that time, that sort of thing. I knew nothing. This is my sister I've just reunited with, and I am holding her hand, and she's in a coma, and I'm playing her music, and I'm, there were people that came and went, but nobody stayed. Like, I stayed overnight. You find a cot, you find the couch in the waiting room. You just get really familiar. I just never left. But my sister, my dad is in Hawaii. You can't get to the East Coast like that, right?
Right.
And I remember my dad saying, and this made me think of this when you were talking, Dawn. I remember my dad saying, like, of course, the phone up to her ear, and he's talking with her and all that sort of thing, but that you're not supposed to outlive your children.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true.
And a week later, I had been the one that was there day and night. So when an episode or something would happen, they would come get me in the waiting room. But the person who was really legally responsible and able to make decisions is her husband, who's not emotionally able to be there.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And so that was really difficult, because at the end, we went through all the ups and downs. She ended up having, like, her intestine had to be partially removed. And, that was a big deal. And they, the nurses would be full of hope, like, oh, this medicine, we've seen it, cycle through and really do miracles. And it just didn't work for my sister. And, in the end, they have to have that tough conversation with you where they're telling you, like, and you ask all the questions, you ask every question to make sure there isn't any hope. And they do the brain wave and all the things. And he shows up finally. It took him a lot. It was really emotionally difficult for him. And he came, and we had to convince him, because we just didn't want her to be, we just thought it would have been awful. It was a hard decision for him to finally make, but
Of course.
that was my first experience with it. And I was young and knew absolutely nothing. Like, I had not experienced any
and you
kind
have
of
a 4-year-old at home.
Yeah. But I mean, I knew nothing about all these bigger things.
Yeah.
It was just really difficult. But my dad, and I think someone said, like, when you have, like, your parents pass away and you can see it coming, all that sort of thing. My dad was not a dad you would see it coming, because he'd went hang gliding just like the week before he got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer out of the blue.
Wow.
He had a little cough. And he's visiting my brother in California. He's from Hawaii. He's visiting my brother in California, and they go hang gliding, and he has a little cough. And my brother says, hey, why don't you go see my doctor and get that checked out while you're here? And he gets it checked out, and it's stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh.
Horrible.
It was like February.
Yeah. Another one, living his best life. And
Oh my gosh, he so was.
damn.
He so was.
Yeah.
Um,
We have his picture queued
oh
up.
yeah, my dad.
Aw.
He called me Miss Pizzazz. I called him Mr. Awesome because I didn't meet him until I was 17. It was a whole thing where, you know, my mom kept me from him, you know, as a way to punish him, which really punished me. But he was a good guy. He was the best. They called him Can Do because he was a can do guy. But yeah, that was and we had him home, not in hospice, but I remember my dad saying, like, so when's my next appointment? And the doctor looking at him like, oh, he's not getting the big picture. You don't have any other appointments because there's nothing else.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And he was on every pain med you can think of. And so he was my first experience with going through all the stages of death, and having to be my sister and I stayed by his side. We had him home at his sister's house in Connecticut, and we just stayed there. And he signed a DNR, which was his choice. So we didn't have to make these decisions for him because he had made them prior.
Yeah. That was my parents.
Yeah, that's so hard to watch too, because you're like, wait, why are you giving up? Like, we want to do everything to save you, but that was his decision. We had to respect that. But yeah. And then I would say fast forward, and you know, I'm with my husband who I met in college, father of my 3 children. We built a home. We built lives. We made plans for, you know, the proverbial rocking on the front porch in your old age and all that sort of thing. And out of a fluke thing where he was having some chest pain, he mentioned to his pharmacist. Pharmacists are the amazing people. But he mentions to his pharmacist some correlation, and it's the metformin. He had just started taking metformin because he had just been diagnosed with diabetes. And he had his dad had a lot of heart condition stuff. And he, when I met him, when he was 18, had high blood pressure. So that should have been a warning. Right. Yeah, I remember they came to campus and they wanted everyone to give blood, like it was a blood thing. And he couldn't because he had high blood pressure. What? How old were you? 18. Oh my gosh. But later in life, when he had a little bit of just chest tightness, and he asked his pharmacist, was it due to the metformin? And he said, yeah, I can do that, but you should, check with your doctor. And he checks with his doctor, and his doctor sets him up with a cardiologist. And he goes in to do a stress test, which if anybody out there doesn't know what a stress test is they put you on a treadmill with all kinds of things hooked up to you. Yep. And they put you through your paces, and they see how your heart reacts to getting up there. And Jim went into AFib, where your heart is not in a regular rhythm. And they get him back out of AFib. And so he's on this treadmill, and we've just come from yard sailing. We're going to go to the grocery store. This was just like a task on the way home. Like, we went yard sailing we have all 3 of our children in the van. We're stopping at our local grocery store. We're going to barbecue later. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, we got to get your stress test in. Formality. And he's on the treadmill, and they cannot get him.
They couldn't get him converted out of it. They couldn't get him, Tammy, converted out of AFib.
No, so he's on the thing, and they're like, "Oh my goodness!" And they're doing all their things, whatever they're doing, and more people are coming in, and you're like, "What is going on? Something's going on."
We had just given him the injection.
Oh my goodness! So they're doing all these things, and they can't get him to go back into regular rhythm, and so they admit him, and then that's when we discover he has birth defect in his aortic valve that he'd had his whole life that we didn't know. And it turns out later, because then you test, right, everybody, his mother had it. And she lived, well into her 70s. And she didn't know she had it either. And so he didn't know he had it. And so he got a valve replacement. And this was June. He passed away the end of July.
Oh,
so the following month, we have the surgery. After it gets canceled twice before that, a set of babies had come into the hospital that had heart conditions. So they called last minute. We know you did all the stuff and did all the things to prep for surgery. We're going to have to put it off. Another time, a week later, they had to put it off because it's just funny hindsight where you go, oh my goodness, those events bought us more time with him. We didn't know that at the time, right?
Okay.
but his doctor had gotten sick, and they said this is the first time in 20 years that surgeon had gotten sick. But he goes through the surgery successfully. I'm in the waiting room holding my ever-loving breath because it was, you're just, what do you do? And this doesn't have to do with dealing with those decisions because I didn't have to deal with them. But I can say, like, when I do think about this in context of that, I will think, like, he got through the surgery. He's 40 years old, 6'4", in all other ways, healthy as a horse. If you saw him, you'd be like, he is strong.
He's a good-looking guy.
And he is in the hospital for a week because it's major surgery, but he does well. Like, he's only in the ICU like for 6 hours. Like, he's really doing well. But they went to discharge him on a Wednesday, and he was like not feeling it. And I don't know how else to explain that. And maybe, you know, Erik, you being through similar situations, he didn't think it was time to be discharged. He didn't feel confident about going home.
Wow.
It's a weird feeling.
It's probably terrifying to think about.
I can't even
Going home, leaving hospital, and all that.
You know,
help that's right there. You know.
Yeah, and the hospital didn't want to release me without a life vest.
Yeah.
Which was basically a vest that would shock you if your heart went out of rhythm or if it
that
had
was
any issues.
Really scary.
And my insurance denied it because the gynecologist that
was reviewing the case.
We denied it. So they fought it for 3 days, and they're finally like, well, I guess you're gonna go home one way or the other. We wish it was with the vest. I was like, that was a horrible feeling.
Wow. So he went home the following day. They did keep him and respect his wishes.
Oh.
He was just really nervous to go home, and he went home on a Thursday. And on Saturday morning, when you come home from a major surgery, there's, every day there's like a list of things you can do or can't do or what you're supposed to be doing. And the home health nurse is coming in and you've got to weigh yourself. And, our whole world had changed and we were adapting to that. And I remember we woke up and I said, I've got all these new items for groceries I need to get that are heart healthy. Right.
Yeah.
And
that was me.
We go out and he wants to go out. He's been cleared to he can go in the vehicle. And thankfully I said thankfully, but I don't know. Like our son was away at a theater camp at the University of Maine for a week. And his dad wanted him to be there, didn't want him to be home. What are you going to do? You're just going to be in the hospital. But our two young daughters are there. They were 6 and not even 10.
Oh.
And we took them in the van and off we go. We stop at our local Dunkin' Donuts for our usual, coffee and iced tea run. And I remember he commented about the view. There's a place it's just a couple miles drive down the road to the local Dunkin' Donuts. And then we're going grocery shopping, to which we plan to have him in a little motor cart kind of thing. And not trying to exhaust him. But I remember we got to this peak in the road where you can sort of see Mount Washington, which is in New Hampshire. And you can see it on a clear day. And I remember we got to that crest and he was just struck by the beauty of that moment. And then when we were in the line at Dunkin' Donuts, he started to have a heart attack. And I can tell you that now. At the time,
you don't know.
At the time, you don't know that's what's going on. I mean, I look back on it now and I think, oh my goodness, how did you not know? But that's all to say, he passes away. We take him to the hospital. They think that he's going to be admitted to their, what they called the White Tower in that hospital, which is where you go for, a heart patient that's in that hospital anyway. And then things go south. I didn't have to make a decision for him, but it was just a horrific. I just think dealing with those moments are just really hard. And, I was blessed later to remarry down the road. And this gentleman, Scott, did we show Jim's picture? Did we show him?
Hold on a second.
No. This is Jim and our youngest daughter, Gabriella, who is 18 now. So she is a lot older.
And we'll cue up Scott.
And there's Scott. Both football guys, both law enforcement guys, kind of funny. Yeah. Oh, yeah, both. They're your people, Erik.
Go figures.
They're both law enforcement. And yeah, here's a big kid. He loved Disney World.
Then you married a nerd.
Yes, then I married a nerd. But Jim was a nerd. Jim was a D&D guy. That's where I learned. But Scott he has congestive heart failure. And we had plenty of stints in the hospital where we're there and it's scary. But the last one, he really lived a year longer than maybe someone would say he should have. But we definitely had to do the decision making that Dawn's talking about, where the people come and tell you all the stuff and it's horrific. And, they go gentle into it. I mean, these people, that's the field they choose to go into this.
Right.
Not just the regular nurses and doctors. There's people that do palliative care. And that's their thing. And I remember the lady, and Rachel, you'll probably just get a kick out of this, but I remember they took me in a room and the palliative lady is trying to gently go into this conversation with me. And I'm thinking, oh, it's that conversation. Like, let me help her because she's trying to tiptoe. And I'm like, oh, we've been in the hospital a week at this point. If things aren't going well, yeah, his kidneys is starting to shut down. He's got hiccups. I don't know, Erik, if you ever knew about, like, you can get hiccups that never stop, and it has to do with.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So all those hiccups. And, but yeah, we had to make that decision. That decision is the hardest, but I'll tell you, I was blessed because I have a good theater friend. If anybody who knows me knows I do special ed director by day and director of theater by night. And I have an amazing friend who is also a theater director, but by day she's an ICU nurse.
Oh, okay.
And he had worked security at the hospital, so everybody there knew him. And when he was going to pass and he was not awake, and we were having to make those decisions and sign that awful paperwork, I didn't go through that whole, I felt like I was killing him. Although I'll have to tell you, there was just this angst because he was so clear with me. We'd had all those tough conversations around what ifs. He was so clear with me. He so loved life. Like, do everything possible. I want to live. That made it extra hard to make that determination with the doctors to say, this is it. And my friend Linda came and, very private. She walked me through all the things. She shut off to all the things. So it was comforting that I had someone I would consider one of my best friends to be with me during this process. And they did a really cool thing at the hospital where they announce over the intercom that Scott is, signing off, that sort of thing. They do a bell whole thing. And people came and circled the room. It was pretty powerful. But those end of life decisions are really already done for you. It's really you having to give in to this decision, because to me, he was already gone. And they, the proof was in, and like you, Dawn, it didn't take too long. It was like maybe 20 minutes. That once they shut things off, there was just little by little. It's a little bit of a slow process. It's definitely not like what you see on TV.
Yeah, you watch them. With me, it was you watch the monitor has both breathing and heart rate. And with Danielle, they both kind of went down slowly together.
Yeah.
But then her breathing stopped and her heart went on for about another 30 seconds. Then she flatlined. Yeah. And at that point, it's done. Yeah. But there's our Irwin said something. He says living wills can be very helpful. Yes. There's a problem with this comment, though. The problem with the living will is there has to be somebody that knows about it and somebody that can bring it out and institute it.
Right.
That was the problem with Danielle. We had Danielle used to always joke around. Don't let me lay a vegetable. Don't let me. Don't let me just lay there. And at the time, you kind of ha it. Everybody. It's a joke. It's kind of like me. Don't let little fart dad. Lay there. Oh, go quit it, dad. That type thing. But like I said, living wills are very useful, but if you have a living will, make sure you give to somebody as a designator, as a person to help implement it, because it's useless.
Right.
And like with my daughter,
need to have.
Yeah.
We had to go to court, and we had to have a full-fledged circuit court hearing with a circuit court judge, and the judge is taking testimony, and
she didn't pass away during that time, thankfully.
No, she didn't. I mean, well, the thing with Danielle was she actually did. She died the night before because when she
During
had
the
her seizures that night, that she died on a Friday evening. She had the seizures Thursday night. We had the hearing Friday morning, like at 9 a.m. And by 9:35, we were done with the hearing. And at 9:40, I got my phone call.
Right.
So then she ended up passing away at 7:16 that evening. So that's how long it takes. So we got there, me and my daughter Neoma, and this is something I think that, we got there by 11:30 in the morning. This decision was not made for almost 6.5 hours. I mean, you don't do this flippantly.
No.
You just don't. It's not just a decision that you go, oh, okay.
No.
It's gut wrenching is not even a definition that applies to it.
Right.
Because it's your own memories, I think, that mess with you as a father. I'm talking as a parent.
Yeah.
Like I said, you start thinking, first time you were called dad by her, you start thinking about the time she was out in the yard playing when she was like 3 to 4 years old. You start talking about the last time you talked to her. And then when it's done, you're mad at yourself because you go through this thing. It's really strange. You're like, no, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. And you start second guessing your own thoughts. And it depends upon the kind of family that you have or not. But, and with my daughter, I'm going to throw something out there because people can know it because it's actually in the courts. And even to this day, I don't know where my daughter's at because the funeral home gave my daughter to a random person that walked in the funeral home. Her remains, her ashes.
Oh.
Yep.
Holy.
What?
I can't imagine.
How does that happen?
Yeah, how does that happen? Because
no ID.
I mean, I knew the people because I had met with them, but I don't feel like anybody could have just came in and got them.
Yep, they walked in and asked for her ashes and walked out, and they gave them to her.
Was it the boyfriend?
We don't know. That's the problem. It's in court right now. I'm actually the funeral home, and I'll happily say who they are in Battle Creek, Michigan, Baxter Funeral Home. I am right now in litigation with them over this, and basically, what it all boils down to be is that it might have been the boyfriend. Most likely, it was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, no ID was shown, no nothing. And it's not only do you lose your daughter, but you got no closure.
Oh, right. That's awful.
John,
that is awful. I've never heard of such a thing. That is, I can't even imagine. And I'll tell you,
never have I heard the attorney who specialized in dealing with funeral homes was blown away by this.
Yeah, I can't even picture that.
Yep.
Because you have such a relationship with these, so my dad was cremated and I had my both husbands cremated. So I'm familiar with that process. And I mean, I can't even picture that happening. And I'll tell you this, the thing that's sad about that is that, and this is going to sound awful for anybody who doesn't realize this, but when you are put as ashes, there's plenty of you. And especially when my husband was 6'4", almost needed I had extra, let's just say.
Right. And they ask you the weight and they go through the whole thing.
Yeah, there's plenty. I literally had them divvied up. Is going to sound awful. There was plenty to be in the urn, but I had special, you can put parts of ashes away for loved ones that want to do that because you can get it pressed to make, into a pendant. You can do things with it, whatever. But so I can't even imagine, Dawn,
and she stated, she more than once said, I want to be cremated. I don't want to be buried. I want you to take my, she loved going up north. And she wanted her ashes spread up at Picture Rocks up north in northern Michigan. And, wasn't able to do it. And the sad part about this is in events like this, there's no culpability against funeral homes because what they do is they lawyer up
Mm-hmm.
You know, they blame it all on you. You know, well, you didn't come in time. And it's like, oh, wait, what the hell are you talking about? I didn't come in time. You know, and so now we're going through that process. It's been going on since she passed away.
Yeah.
That's
And these
Wow.
funeral homes are not small.
Oh, and you know, this is the thing that bugs me is they lie.
Mm.
They lie because like what this funeral home pulled was they said that I abandoned my daughter. I never came in to get her. And I was like, what? And I'm like, literally, I just got to do this out of spite, if you do not mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
No.
Just out of absolute, I want to do this. I gotta get my glasses on for this one. Let's see here. So they say I never came in. I abandoned her. Oops, don't want to call them. So I don't think you can hear it. Yeah. Basically what it says, hi, Don, this is Rocky with Baxter Funeral Services. Just kind of calling you back again. I know you came in yesterday and I wasn't available to pick up your daughter.
Oh,
I got several voicemails like that and they deny them. They're from their phone number, from everything. I still think don't ever delete your email. Don't delete emails. Do not delete nothing. I have all the email and all that, but you know,
Yeah, that is.
you
that is rough.
just.
I can't even picture that.
Yeah.
So
Because you need that at the end. Like you need that.
Yes.
Yeah, you need closure.
You need that.
You need to be able to complete. You know, yeah, you're right. You just need that. You need to complete the process. And they, RPG Grandma, no, that's the point. What they did, we just got done going through a thing called summary disposition, where basically the funeral home tried to get the case dismissed. So, and we got the decision back in our favor. So, no, it's not been dismissed. But the yo-yo head guy at the funeral home admitted that they never ID'd the guy.
Yeah. And that's the crux of it.
Not even IDing, like if you don't recognize them, because
No,
when
it
you
doesn't
go to
matter.
these places, you have an intimate, like automatic relationship with them because you have to sign. There is so much that goes with
you
this.
sign a contract with the funeral
So
home
much.
with them.
Yeah.
And even and like my attorney even said, the law is in Michigan is even if they know who you are, they still have to take a photograph of your ID when they pick up the remains. There's a process in Michigan. It protects.
Yes.
And they just totally bypassed it.
Wow, Dawn, that's awful.
So
that is awful.
who paid for the cremation?
What's that? We did.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, because
they're not cheap either. Those
I'm
like
was
a
just
grand
thinking
or
about the
more.
process with Dad. That I mean, if they had given the ashes to my sister, I would have been like, she's paying the bill.
But see, this is the thing. You got to understand something, Tom. Is if you came in and you signed that contract, you did, and then your sister comes in and pays the bill, they can't give those remains to your sister even. That contract is with you. You are the one, unless your sister is listed on the paperwork.
Correct. That is correct.
An authorized individual.
That's right.
Because, sadly, it's a legal contract.
It is.
With it. And so what they do is when they make a mistake, and they know they made a big mistake, they do what they do. So that's why you just always, and then this is the second part I want to kind of bring up in this is, don't ever think it's over just because your loved one is at the funeral home. You always make sure you keep all voicemails. You make sure you keep all your phone records. You make sure that you keep all email communications, all paperwork, all of that until you have your loved one.
I can't imagine. I had to do that with my brother, arrange for cremation online. basically. He was in Texas when he passed away. And so, it had been some time between him passing away and then myself being able to like get information and be able to give information to like the medical examiners and stuff. And then
you had to get your DNA tested.
And I had to get a DNA test so that they would like release him to like a funeral home or to be able to do anything to like identify that I'm his kin. So
you had to have a DNA test for that?
Yeah. And I was afraid. I was like, so do you know? I'm asking the coroner's office. I'm like, so do you know like I have a genetic difference. I'm an albino, and is that going to impact like is my DNA gonna be too different from him? Because I didn't understand at the time, fully what it all was. So, they were like, I don't think so. And I'm like, okay, so I'll go. So we had to go out to New Jersey, because they didn't have this particular lab in the city.
Yep.
I was like, yeah, I'll go right down to Quest. You tell me, when I can go, send me the paper.
Special,
and they were like, no, we use this lab, and the closest one to you is in New Jersey. I'm like, well, all right, I'm not leaving him in there, so I guess we have to go to New Jersey,
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and then it like took a long time to like get everything like sorted with the funeral home, to get the cremation. But they were like so good. They were so spot on, and they were, there was like a whole like chain of custody paperwork that they had to do with what do you call it, FedEx?
Yeah.
To get his remains to me in New York.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
See, in Michigan, it's very simple. We called the funeral home on the day after Saturday, made an appointment for Monday morning, and we made the appointment to talk about if we wanted them to do this, because we're, we don't know if this is going to be the right home for us. We had called them when we got there Monday morning, me and my wife. They said, oh, we already picked her up. So I didn't know the process. I mean, I didn't know. I thought, oh, that's what they do. Well, I found out later on, no, that's not what they do. How are they authorized to pick up a decedent?
Yeah,
there was a lot of things dropped.
Yeah.
But at that time, you're grieving, you're reeling, like you're 3 days out of this happening. You sign. You're not even reading the. I'll be honest with you. You're not even reading the paperwork. You're signing it.
Right.
You're just signing it.
Yeah.
And but luckily, and I don't know how it is in Maine or New York, but in Michigan, luckily, that paperwork is very explicitly worded, and it protects. It protects the family more than the funeral home. So, with them, they're in the process of answering for an awful lot.
Okay.
An awful lot.
Good.
I just can't even imagine they don't recognize you. Because to me, again, I go back to
they knew it wasn't me.
Conversation I had with them. I mean, you're spending time with them. You're freshly wounded. I'm getting fingerprints of. I'm trying to think ahead. Like I need extra death certificates. They furnish that.
They didn't care.
The thing is, that's the whole point. They knew it was not me. In deposition, they asked the funeral guy, Rocky is his name.
Mm-hmm.
They asked him, was that, did you not know that was Mr. Samora? And they're like, no, it wasn't Mr. Samora.
Sounds like they knew.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, it's not over yet now. They had their one chance in court to get dismissed
or something. I wonder, because what would beg you to put yourself in that kind of legal, just ethical stupidity? Sorry, Don. I'm just flabbergasted.
No, it is. It literally is what my attorney has said in his 30 plus years of and he handles medical malpractice, funeral home malpractice. So he's a specialist, and they've said we have never, ever ran into a situation where ashes were given to somebody they were not even supposed to be given to.
Mm-hmm.
We, like he said, we've had ashes given to the wrong, mixed up. We've had like names get crossed, but never this. And
That's
the
crazy.
sad part is the funeral home takes no responsibility for it.
That's
They don't want to.
disgusting.
They say, well, that's not our fault, it's your fault.
Wow.
That's
And you didn't come in time. It's like,
That's
I have the
crazy.
voicemails. I tried.
wow.
Wow.
So
Well, I wanted to
Hmm.
interject
Yeah.
some things out there for people, and this is from Tammy's story. It's things I've thought about concerning what I've observed. And this is for the people watching. If you've got somebody that you know who's going through this, there are things you can do to help them. For instance, one of Tammy's friends came and took Gabriella and then took her out for a whole day.
Yeah.
While I was trying to figure out how to write an obituary and things I hadn't prepared for. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that is so good. Such a good point. The people that could come help.
Yeah, it takes a village to.
Oh
get
my
through
goodness.
So there's that.
Oh yeah.
I know when Scott died, a lot of people brought food, and it kind of got.
It was too much food.
There was too much, and it got jammed in the freezer.
They brought so much food.
When she moved in with me, I was like,
we still had food from.
I was trying to defrost that freezer and rip lasagnas out of there. But we've discovered there's this thing.
The lasagna one.
There's a thing.
Oh, what's it called?
Out there that there are people who have volunteered, and so you check in with this thing. I think it's online, and so like if you know somebody, and you can say, I've got a friend out in Michigan who had something happen, and there's somebody out there who's like, oh yeah, they've all volunteered to.
That's nice.
To make a lasagna and deliver it. And so we did that for a family in the church. Last year.
It's a really cool, someone started it, like, I just knew about it because it got delivered to me by someone I didn't know. And they were like, because your name had been given by this, I'll tell you what the name of this place is, but you don't have to be a specialist or a great cook. And all the family has to do is give their email, and they'll be contacted to say, like, we're going to deliver this meal to you. What are your
nationwide?
Huh?
This is nationwide?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that's a really nice thing. The other piece of advice I would give is that she was also given a lot of like gift cards to Olive Garden restaurants, that kind of thing.
Those are super helpful.
And those are actually more helpful, I think, than 26 lasagnas that you jam in the freezer.
There were times where I was not dealing well. I let my children see me laugh and cry, but there were definitely times where I was not.
Yeah.
After teaching all day and going, 3 kids, I'm like, and you're just the weight of the world feels on your shoulders. Even if you don't have young children, just your spouse dies, it's just really hard. And there were times I did not want to cook dinner. So those gift cards were.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of things that you can do to help somebody going through this. And, sometimes it's just being there and sitting with them. I had a friend going through a hard thing, and he came and picked me up at work. I was, getting off at 11:30 at night, just thinking about going to bed. And we went and hiked a mountain and started a fire up in a little fireplace and just sat there. A little bit of chit chat, not much. I didn't know what to say. I know he's going through a tough thing. We just sat there and
But see, that's just it. Sometimes it's like my wife has been my rock throughout all of this. Tina has, but sometimes what people need to understand, if they're friends or whatnot, sometimes just coming over and being there with you.
Yes.
And they don't have, you don't got to talk about it. I mean, maybe just a little bit of normality. Talk about normal stuff,
Send it.
Because sometimes having a constant flow of people, even though they're trying to be nice and offer condolences and wanting to talk about, they always say, let's talk about when she was younger or whatnot. You don't want to, as a dad, I don't want to sit down with people and talk about my daughter. So, within a week of her death, about remember when she was 3 years old and whatnot. No, No. And thing is, they're not being mean. They don't mean harm by it.
They don't. They don't.
Because they're just trying to help. But like
Sometimes
I said,
it's just let's look at an old movie together, and whatever comes up, or like we have someone who in our life is terminally ill now, and we go for visits, and we generally don't talk about it until he goes. He'll go there sometimes, with what that's like, and his wife will do the same.
I'll say I'll offer this advice to any parent that has a child. I don't care if your child is 15. I don't care if your child is 35 or 40. Your kids, when they grow up and they move away, they make decisions, and their decisions maybe you don't like.
Yeah.
You as a dad, I don't agree with this. Don't let the animosity get between you and your kid. I've seen too many parents like that. I've seen too many parents try to be a parent to a 35-year-old. No, the role changes.
Right.
So if you have a kid that you haven't seen, don't let time and distance stop it. You have a cell phone, text them or call them. Don't say, "Oh, I'll call him next week," and then something happens and you're 3 months or 6 months haven't talked to him. Always be the one, even if because they're busy. They don't got time for mom and dad when they're in their 30s and 40s. They got a life. You be the instigator. Don't be the type of parent where you go, "Well, they're not calling me, so I won't call them."
Right.
Don't do that.
It's too short.
Life is too short because you never know when your brother will pull in the driveway. So I tell people.
This woman's a saint. She, her mother.
I'm glad this is on recording. Anyway.
her mother kept her from her father and her siblings.
Yeah.
And
she is not mother of the year.
Was abusive.
Oh.
And she still calls her once a month.
Once a week. Once a month.
Well.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I try to miss some of those. It feels like once a month.
They're awful. They're like 3 minutes.
Terrible.
They're awful. They're 3 minutes, and afterwards I have to have therapy with him for a minute because they're so. They mess with my head.
I just have to listen and nod my head.
Mm-hmm. They're awful.
Yeah.
But I'm her only child. Like that. That's I'm her own. That's it. She only has me.
I'm like, I don't know why you bother, but you're like you.
She only has me.
As
awful as she is.
You still do the right thing, and you're a better person than me.
Wow. That's not about being a saint.
I try to do the right thing, but I don't always.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
I mean, there have been times where I've had friends who said, leave your cell phone at home, get on the train to bring a baseball bat, meet me in North Carolina. I would have done it.
The thing is this
they digress
because they're I'm just not as warm and squishy as you are.
But the thing is, this is the whole thing with me is when it's family, especially at your child. Yeah. I'll be the first to admit that when my mother died, I hadn't talked to my mother in 3 years because my mother did not like who I married. And, my mother and I had a happy childhood. Don't get me wrong. My mom and dad provided for us. My mom, was always loving, but as my mom got older, I think a little bit of dementia, hit her, paranoia, very anger and all that. So, I hadn't even seen my mom, for 3 years. So, it's easy to get disconnected. It really is.
Yeah.
And even if you call them up and they really don't want to talk to you, it ain't a bad thing. They're family.
Right.
Friends can fall out of line. I believe that. Mm-hmm. I mean, people who can backstab you, friends and such, but
Right.
You know, your children, people like that. No, you stay in contact with them. You know, you
Yeah.
got to, as a parent. That's part of being a parent.
We could do a whole other episode, Eric, just on do you have mom and dad issues?
Yes.
Oh, well, we'll see that
Well,
one for
family all
2020.
together.
See that
Yeah.
for 2024. Okay.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
gotta
I hope
leave
this
people
helps
wanting
somebody out
more.
there, though.
Yeah.
I hope like our sharing these experiences, and it's not always easy. I wasn't like, oh yay, talking about dead, like it's hard. It's hard to talk about this stuff, and it brings you right back. I could tell when Dawn was talking, it brings you right back to those moments. It's really hard.
It's important for folks to realize they aren't the only ones going through this.
Yeah.
Like I know people that popped up in the chat that I know personally, and I know what's going on in
Oh, okay.
It's tough.
you feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do.
And again, 7 years ago, I could do this without blinking. I no longer have that tough veneer.
It's called empathy.
Well,
It's
you're
called
allowed
empathy,
now.
Eric. You're allowed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's safe now to feel.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But
The women in our lives soften us up a little bit.
oh well,
Yeah.
God, I married a tough Irish chick. Holy crap! Well, we're hitting. Wow, look at that. Over an hour and 20. God bless. God bless. Listen, it wasn't even. I'm not gonna say truth bombs, but the amount of honest history and life experiences that you've heard tonight. If you're watching this live, if you're watching this on a replay, you're not gonna find this elsewhere. And this is the community. Don has put together a website. It's on the bottom of this screen. This is your website. If you're watching this, this is your website. This is where you're going to go, where we're going to have the lasagналove.org link, so you know where to find it.
Lasagna
Yeah.
You know, this is the stuff that we're going to want to exchange with each other.
To share it for when, God forbid, it's like you don't helping each other.
As Rach is dropping my magnetic balls all over
I didn't do it.
You did. I heard it clink and it just probably got attached to the chair. I didn't do it. Who do you think? I'm not going to go into it.
The cat. I thought it was the cat.
I'm not going to go into it. Oh, geez. But again, that link's been on the bottom of the screen this past nearly hour and a half. It's there for a reason. It's there because that's your place to go. That's it. I don't believe in safe places, but that's the place that you can go.
That
well, Eric, if I may say something about the website.
Yeah.
There is a link up top that says, I just want to make sure I get the link name correct. The link says the Gamers Health Forum. That right now goes nowhere. By tomorrow, right about this time, it'll be a full-fledged online forum where, like Eric said, people will be able to go. They'll be able to talk. You can sign up anonymously. You don't have to put your real name down. If you want privacy, you can use a pseudonym. And it allows you to reach out and vent if you need to.
Right.
But vent in a safe space because it's no judgment. It's going to be heavily admin by all of us here.
Yes.
We're going to tolerate no shenanigans. You're not going to have anybody make fun of you. No one's going to sit there and criticize you.
Yeah, it's not for that.
Yep.
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave.
Good night, Dave.
But no, it's a huge thing now. Tomorrow night, and Dave, you better not hang out tomorrow night because he's in the UK.
Yeah, right.
What? He's 5 hours later.
We're gonna kick this thing off tomorrow night around like 11:30 p.m. and then keep it running until a little bit after 1 New York time as we gather.
So it'll be like 6 a.m.
Yeah, maybe when he wakes up, if he wants to come in and check it out. But no, Dave should get some rest and sleep. But so folks, if you didn't hear, and we have fireworks going on in the background, like I told you, it's a Filipino revolution, and they're singing karaoke. God help us all.
You all didn't hear My Life?
Usually it's
Billy
happy,
Joel's My Life.
usually it's happy birthday every half an hour because they've heard if you sing happy birthday, the
the police
police
won't come.
police won't shut you down because it's a birthday party.
Oh my gosh.
That is the belief. Trust me.
Cops are here. Sing happy birthday.
Yep, pretty much.
Uh-huh.
But tomorrow night on this very channel, 11:30 New York City time, probably also streamed on Tom's Tap Room and Don's Wizard Tower Games. Maybe
it's going to be triple.
maybe even Shadow and Sun, and maybe
Ah.
we're gonna have a lot of people on here. And listen, if you are in the chat and you want an invitation to come on and actually get on tomorrow night's for you. So we're going to be hanging out. We're going to be enjoying the new year. We'll be telling stories. But if you're in the chat and you wish to come on and join us, let me know in the chat. And if you know me on Facebook, you'll know how to contact me.
Sweet.
So we can bring some extra people in.
So we're gonna have at least a
Good deal.
triple cast. It's gonna go on.
It's going to be
John's
everywhere.
thing and
I'm sure.
Tom's tabletop
Yep.
Tom's. Ah,
So
very
the
cool.
idea is to really, really enjoy the community. We shall see. Laugh out loud. Bye, Dave. Get up early. Just go to bed early and get up early, Dave.
There you go.
Well, anything else before we sign out?
Just thank you so much for sharing your experience with that. It's definitely not
Oh, God.
easy. And just you guys have done something really helpful and positive for everybody in the community, and Don, you've made something positive out of a really horrible, painful situation,
We appreciate you having me
violent
on. Seriously.
situation. Yeah.
Well, we love you guys.
Yeah, well, you guys too.
Well, okay, folks, on that note, tomorrow night, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 10:30 Central. Look for us on this channel. You'll see these faces, maybe more. Maybe more. As usual, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice, roll them well. Tomorrow night. We hope to see you then.
Very cool.
Laters.